Hey guys, welcome to Gearheads. So this is going to be part 2 of our 1.8 engine swap series on Jesse's Miata. If you haven't seen part 1 already, go ahead and click back and watch it. We did the entire engine pull out of the car, pulled the transmission out, we disconnected all the lines and all the hoses, drained all the fluids, and now we're going to get ready to prep the next engine to go into the car.
Yeah, so and on top of prepping that, the engine bay in there is filthy, so while I'm swapping things over here, Matt's gonna help me out a bit by going through and cleaning up the engine bay. We might delete a couple things we don't need. And then otherwise, I'm just gonna drag this engine on the floor here, all the way up over next to the engine that just came out, and I'm gonna swap over everything that I need to get on this new engine, including a bunch of new parts that I have sitting around waiting to go on here. So stay tuned and we'll see how much we get done today.
We'll keep wrenching.
We'll keep wrenching, yeah. Hey. There we go. 1.8 meet 1.6. My babies. Something I forgot to mention when you delete the air conditioning on the engine here, obviously the engine's out of the car, but if you want to delete your AC, this bracket is still down here. Optionally, you can leave it if you want to, but part of the point of removing the AC is to save weight, right? And this is a big heavy metal bracket, so there is a few 14mm bolts here holding that in place, and if you take those out, it should come off, except there is also one more bolt right here in the front. Now, that bolt needs to be pulled out to take the bracket off, but you need to replace it with a different size, shorter bolt, because that actually goes into the front area of the engine where the oil pump is, and you will leak oil out of there, which is no good. So I will make sure I put I'll put the size of the bolt you need to replace it on the screen so that you can find one. And that is all you need for the AC delete on top of everything else we already covered. So here's the deal with this engine right now. When the car was in the accident, the coolant neck here got broken. So I need to actually take the valve cover off. I need to take the cams off. I need to take the water pump pulley off. I'm gonna need to pulling this pulley off anyways because I'm swapping it with a newer one. And I'm going to have to get into the water neck in here, take that off, and I actually have a cover for that because I'm doing the coolant reroute, which, so I was gonna delete this anyways, so this kind of just, you know, needed to happen anyway. As far as things that you will need to do if you're just doing a 1.6 to 1.8 swap, let's see here. You're gonna wanna come back here and pull off the cam angle sensor, which is gonna have, which is going to have these two 12mm bolts in the top of it holding it in place, and you want to pop that off and swap it onto your new engine, or off, I guess it'd be off of that one onto this one. Or if you can get a 1.8 liter one or get one with the engine, that's awesome too. Let's see, what else? If you do not get injectors with it, you're going to need to pull the fuel rail and swap in injectors. I'll be going over that and doing it soon too. Ideally, I mean, for me, I have two engines and transmissions sitting here, so I'm going to pull this transmission off the engine and swap the clutch in there while I'm here. And when you do that, you're going to want to swap your rear main seal, you're going to want to swap your clutch and whatnot as well. So these are just a lot of things that I'm going to be doing. I'll make sure that, you know, we film as I go here, pulling this thing apart and swapping what I need, but I need to get started working because it's already getting late in the day and there's a lot to do still. All right, when you pull off your valve cover, just make sure you're careful and alternate around the sides. If you want to look it up, there is a proper order to do it. But if you just go crazy and do one side all the way to the other side, it is possible for them to bend or crack, even though it is pretty unlikely. All right. Now that had a brand new valve cover gasket on it, and this has really just been sitting for almost a year, so I think the gasket should be fine to reuse. I'm not going to bother buying a new one right now. But I did need to take this off so I can get to the cams, and I'm doing new cam seals because the cam seals were leaking. And I'm probably going to swap my cam angle sensor here. This one actually works still, but if you look at this connector here, you can see that the those little metal contact points are exposed, and the plug, the plastic part of the plug that's supposed to be sitting on there is missing. Now, that was leading me to get some kind of unreliable signal from that thing, and I don't really want to mess with it just because I'm going to be boosting my car. The truth is, if you're just running a stock car, I'll probably keep it around. If you're running a stock power car and you're not over stressing it, you could probably fix that. Just get the plug back on there, some RTV or something to seal it up down there. But like I said, I don't really want to risk it because I don't want to risk under high engine load, like high boost, high RPM. I don't want to risk it messing up the spark and toasting my motor. So anyway, and right now, since I've got the 10mm on my drill, I'm just going to take everything off that I know is a 10mm. Now I'm just pulling the timing cover bolts off, which are 10mm as well. And there's one more. I really hope the crank was not damaged in the accident. That's going to be a big bummer if it is, because this is my only good motor. The other motor over there needs to be rebuilt still. Oh, look at that. My oil return line for the turbo. I need to plug that. Need to remember to plug that before I put this in the car and start running the engine. That would be no good. Now I know I'm going to be doing my new cam angle sensor, so I may as well just pull this off for now. Oop. And then the adjuster one that goes on the back there. And I'm going to go ahead and pull the fuel rail right now because I know I need to swap in the stock 1.8 fuel injectors. Right now I have Injector Dynamics 1000cc injectors, which I will be using again, but I need to pull them out now because I'm setting this all up back in the car to run for stock for now, just to show you guys how to do that. This is always easier if you pull the rail back a bit and then just pull each injector out individually. And these aren't stock, so they actually have their own little harness plugs on them. Alright, there we are. Now if you look in there, you'll see the holes where the fuel injectors are a bit dirty, so the best thing for me to do would probably be to clean them out a bit. Down in here. Kind of see the tip of my finger, yeah, right down there. It's just a bit dirty, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up before I put the new injectors in. And I can just pull the rail up out of the way for now. Whoop. Oh yeah, got that vacuum line on the fuel pressure regulator. Oh, that's tight. There we are.
Alright everybody, well Jesse is starting on swapping over all the parts from one engine to the other, from the 1.6 to the 1.8. I'm gonna get started on cleaning the inside of the engine bay here. So I got some engine cleaner, the foamy stuff, and I'm basically gonna shoot this entire engine bay as much as I can and get it looking as good as possible. Now obviously there's gonna be some dirt in there that gets left over, but I wanna clean it up as best as I can so that when we put the new block in here, it looks pretty good and decent. It's a good idea just to assume that when you use the shop towels after you're degreasing your engine bay that you're just gonna throw them away.
I'm just trying to see if I can break this loose by hitting it with the hammer. If not, I'll have to get the air gun and yank it off that way. Yeah, it's not coming that way. I'm gonna have to use the air gun. Now I know not everybody has air tools. If for any reason you know that you're going to be pulling the pulley off of the motor before you take your engine out or something, this is a very different situation because this engine was already sitting out of the car. It's always easier if you have it in the car because then you can leave it in gear with the e-brake on or whatever. Or if you really need to do this on the floor and you can't get to it, pull the transmission off the back and have a friend help you by holding the flywheel on the other side so that you can break it loose. Anyways, for now though, that's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the timing belt off. So I'm gonna loosen this adjuster right here, or the tensioner right here. Pull off the timing belt. Now, I'm going to have to retime the engine after I do this, so I'll make sure I show you guys how to do that because it is not difficult. And the truth is, I know I'm doing it out of the car, but this is definitely something I would recommend you doing. If you're planning on doing a motor swap, do your timing belt while you're there, and your water pump. This is a brand new water pump, so I'm showing you most of the way. But the harder part really, at least for most people I think, are scared of doing the timing belt because they don't want to mess up the engine timing. Once you get this deep though, the water pump's super easy. It's just got a few 12mm bolts holding it in, so you just got to make sure you pull it out, make sure you seal it back up the right way when you put it in, and that's it. Just bolts right on and off. Anyway, like I said though, I'm not going to mess with it just because it's already brand new. I just did it last year on this engine. For now though, I am going to do the cam seals because that is something I did neglect to do and they were leaking. So now I get to take all this apart again. Honestly, I probably actually needed to take this all apart anyways because when the car got in that accident, the sway bar came up and brushed up against the front crank pulley and I could see some marks on the crank pulley that's spinning against it. It's very possible that this engine jumped timing, so I don't even know for sure at all if the engine was timed properly anyway. So this is a good opportunity for me to check that out myself. So I will show you shortly here how to retime the engine and how to get the new timing belt on, set right, and everything else. It's really not that difficult, and like I said, I highly recommend doing it. Along with all the other things I would recommend doing, like do a new valve cover gasket while you have it apart, do a front crank seal, do a rear main seal. These are all new on my car. The only thing I didn't do, I don't know why, like I said, was the cam seals, but those are very easy. I'm just gonna get to those in just a minute here. All right, when you're gonna break these things loose, one option is to just break them loose while it's on, while the timing belt's still on it, and then you can spin them out the rest of the way. Another option is, so you know, on the cams here, there actually is a notched out hex section of it that you can put an adjustable wrench on, and that should allow me to break this loose. Oh shoot, it's slipping past it. That's no good. Come on, man, tighten up. All right, that's as tight as I'm gonna get it. Man, why is that so tight? That should not have been as tight as it is. All right, that's loose enough. Let me go ahead and do it on the next one. All right, now this one. There's one. All right, now that got me to the cam seals, so let me go ahead and get something to pull those out with. If you saw the clutch video, I used, to get the rear main seal out, I actually drilled a screw in and pulled it out. You can do that for this too, but it's a little more risky because these are a lot smaller, so it's not as easy. I'm gonna try and scrape it out without damaging anything. And then if you have to, you can also pop these guys loose a bit to pull it out. So we'll see. Since they're not coming out as easily as I wanted them to, I'm gonna go ahead and just have to break these loose a little bit with my 10 mil. I should have a better pick than these ones I'm using. They're not strong enough. There we go. Had to break it open and pry it that way. That worked. There we go. Okay, let's put the new cam angle seals in, and I need to torque those bolts back down properly, and then also before the cam gears go back on, I need to pull this cover off too, but I can at least get the seals in first. Problem, Houston, these look too big. Well, they are though, they're bigger diameter, look at that. Oh man, what a pain. I've had these sitting around for like a year waiting to put in the car and they're not even the right size. Wow. Well, better call Napa and see what they got. Oh, look at this. It says POS on it, right there into my thumb. How fitting. How fitting is that? What a POS. It's never easy, is it? One thing after another. right, now obviously the accident busted the coolant neck that used to come out of here. I'm luckily just replacing it with something else to block it off because I don't want it anymore. So let me just pull that out and I'm gonna go get the coolant reroute kit I have sitting around here somewhere. Alright, so I have my coolant reroute kit here, and it uses this spacer on the back side of the block, and then also I believe, and that side goes out to the heater core, and then this guy gets bolted onto it to send coolant around the other side. So that's for the back though. I believe this kit was supposed to come with something in here to block that off. So let's see what I've got. Aha! I should be able to actually just tap in this freeze plug. And just to be safe, I'll throw a little RTV on this thing and just bolt this on and call it a day. I also probably should clean that up with some sandpaper real fast too. So let's do that. Perfect. Cool. All right, and while I'm still working on the front of the engine here, Matt is going to go to the back and pull the transmission off. He's going to wipe off and clean the transmission a bit because it's got a bunch of grease on it, and we are going to install a new clutch. And I think the rear main seal is brand new still. That's only a year old. Maybe. I'll call Napa if they happen to have one for cheap. Maybe I'll throw one in there too, but if I don't, it's not a big deal. It's pretty dang new. The only reason I'm really replacing the clutch is because while I have it apart, I was pretty abusive on the old one. And I got a 6-puck clutch to go in there this time instead of the organic disc I was using before. Even though I have a really sturdy pressure plate, it was rated for like 300 or 400 foot-pounds of torque, which is a lot more than I'm going to be doing. The 6-puck should hold up a little better.
Uh-oh. We have a problem, Houston. Somewhat. Small problem. Does that flip over the other side? Is it different sized?
That's disappointing. But hey, I only paid what, like $90 for this coolant reroute kit from somebody in, I don't remember what country it was, maybe Poland or some Slavic country. Some guy there has a metals machine shop and he was making these kits, basically selling them for 1/3 of the price you can buy them for here. So, you know, that's all right. I will really quickly cut the corners of this with a grinder a bit just so it fits better in there because that is not gonna make it. It was just barely touching on the top sides, so I think that shaved it down enough.
All right. There we go.
Last 2 bell housing bolts.
Alright you guys, so I just took all the bolts off of the bell housing. It's kind of important that you keep them in order. Most of them are the same, but you do want to keep track of them and make sure you know where they went. So all I did was I laid them out the way that they came off of the bell housing, one right after the other. So when I put them back, I'll know right where they go.
One thing Jesse can't stand is a dirty tranny.
Dirty tranny. I'll take a clean one though. Oh, look at that. It's seen some heat. What a surprise! I'm gonna clean this. I'm gonna hit this with some degreaser and just wipe it off and clean it. But honestly, I think I'm just gonna leave this because it already got a new pilot bearing here, and that seems to be good. It's not making any scraping feelings or noises. And the throwout bearing and the transmission is newer as well. They both have less than 5,000 miles on them. And I did the rear main seal, and it looks dry underneath it. What looks wet here looks like it was coming down from up top around. So I'm not gonna change the rear main seal right now because like I said, it's got less than 5,000 miles on it anyways. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put the new clutch in there, I guess. I need my clutch alignment tool. I've been waiting to put this in for a while. I bought this I thought the engine was gonna be in the car like 4 or 5 months ago. I bought this I think 6, 7 months ago. Oh, it's been a while though. All right, new ACT meet old ACT. Advanced clutch technologies. All right, here we go. Make sure you don't get any lube on the clutch. That'll be no good. Didn't I say I was gonna wipe that off? Matt, can you throw me a rag? Thank you. I said I was going to, but I didn't do it yet. Not that it's gonna matter, it's gonna get a whole bunch of new clutch dust on it in no time, I'm sure. It'll at least make me feel better inside to think there's a shiny yellow part flying around in there.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
How about that?
How about that?
How about that? For anybody with a Miata, go to Miata.net and download the PDF they have there and print it up on a sheet of paper and post it in your garage, because they have this awesome sheet showing all the torque specifications for pretty much every bolt that you need one for on the engine. So right now I'm in the clutch section, and these are the pressure plate bolts, which need, let's see here, I'm going for foot-pounds, I believe, on these ones. 14 to 19 foot-pounds. All right. So 14 to 19, I'm putting it at about 18 right here. And go in the star-shaped pattern. Don't go in a straight circle all the way around. And then after you do it, you need to double check it. And it looks like I'm gonna need, at least once I get them snug down, I'll need to hold this with a flat head or something, or I'll just stick this in there and hold it. I don't know. I'll figure something out. Oh, look at that, I can hold it. That's that one. There's that one. Okay, now that they're all tightened down, I'm gonna go back and double check every single one. All right. See, like that one went on a little further this time, since you tightened all the other ones up, and so did this one. Since all the other ones got tightened up, it sunk it down a little further so you can re-torque them. There we go. All right. Those are all good. So I can pull out the clutch alignment tool, and as soon as Matt's done cleaning the transmission over there, we can go ahead and stab it back on. I'll take the time right now to clear out just some of the grime that's in here. All right, now that I'm done torquing these, since I also took those front camshaft mounts off, I'm gonna go ahead and torque those back down to spec as well. All right, I just looked it up, and 43 to 78 inch-pounds is what these are supposed to be torqued to. So I'm just gonna double check that. All right. Man, that just seems like nothing, but I know that's how it is with these. I know they don't get torqued down very hard. Okay, now that these are torqued on properly, I'm gonna go ahead and finish the coolant reroute. Obviously, I blocked the front off already, so I got it started. But I'm gonna take the back apart and get everything on there that I need. And after that, the next thing I'm gonna tackle should be probably the fuel injectors and the fuel rail, and then I'm gonna swap the harness from that one over onto this one. And then after that, hopefully we'll get the transmission back on here, which will tip this back, and at that point I can do the engine mounts, and I can do the front pulley, that new harmonic balancer I have. So, all right, just gotta keep working. All right, Mike just had a very good point, something I realized. I do remember, this engine somehow still has a dipstick that is not broken. It's a miracle. So, I'm going to swap it onto the one that is going in there. I think the 1.8 and 1.6 was the same length. Let me check.
That should be a whole separate video.
This should be a whole separate video?
How to swap your dipstick?
How to swap your dipstick. Yeah, they're the exact same length. Cool. So to get to the coolant reroute on this thing, you just need to pull the back thermostat housing off, which obviously from the factory for Miata is not a thermostat housing, but At least on the 1.6 cars when it came in other models, this is where the thermostat was supposed to be housed. And Christian finally got here to help. Talk about being late.
Hey guys, just got off work.
So, okay, I appreciate that you're here. I'm happy that you came. There we go, that's pretty good. I will need to steal something from the other engine still, but let's see here. That is gonna be how it installs, except for I need to remove this stud still, so one sec.
Juan,
Juan.
are you gonna count for us, Jesse?
Of course. Of course. I will count for you. Aha, there we go. One turn at a time, my friend. One turn at a time. Somebody call 911.
There was a taco shop sign Mike finally sent to that group text on Instagram. It was, oh look at Loki, he's having fun. It was a 9 Juan taco emergency. It was awesome. So I think this kit has a relocator for this guy because when you stick that on the back, if this thing's sticking straight out, it goes into the firewall. I believe that kit has a different spot to plug this in. And this is just your fan switch. It's not even your coolant sensor. I'll have to look on there and be sure though. I'm not 100% on that. I think it has 2 slots though, one for the fan switch and one for the coolant temp sensor. We'll see. All right. Yeah. And by the way, while I'm doing this, Christian's gonna go ahead and start swapping my engine mounts, which if you are just doing a simple normal swap, you can just get some factory engine mounts and you'll be just fine. But because I'm going with the turbo, I noticed on my old car, I had upgraded poly diff mounts, polyurethane differential mounts, and even with those, and then I had rubber engine mounts, but they're supposed to be the Mazda competition ones that are 80% stiffer than stock. But even with that much extra stiffness or whatever in there, when I was drag racing, my shifter was wandering quite a bit, which was no good. So I've got these nice, I think I got these ones from Goodwin Racing, or no I didn't. I got these from 949 Racing, the super Miata ones. But they're all similar. They all use a polyurethane, little bushing in here to hold it and dampen it a little bit. And these are the 75 durometer ones, and supposedly they're a little bit stiff and they cause a little bit of extra chassis like shaking and vibration for about 500 miles or so, and after that they kind of set in and soften up a little bit, and it's better from there. If you go with anything stiffer than that though, you're asking for a bad time. If you drive your car on the road, it's going to be vibrating way too much. So don't go any stiffer than that. At least that's what the guys at Goodwin Racing and 949 Racing told me. So let's, well, you keep doing that. Let me keep figuring this out and what I'm going to do. That's good enough.
They just
Hi, Loki boy. How you doing, buddy?
They just bolted the two
Hi.
mounts together.
Hi. Hello. You have puppy breath. All right. Now, I still need to weigh my options here because I'm kind of trying to figure out what I should do with this. All right, that sensor is going to go right there, and this is actually just your coolant temperature sensor, and this is what sends it to the ECU. The gauge that you see in your car is actually just a really dumb little, barely a temperature sensor that goes down right here. It's a single wire one that runs to the gauge, and so that one doesn't give you a really correct reading at all. But you can get an exact rating from this one if you have like a Megasquirt or something, or if you have an OBD2 car, sometimes you can see what your coolant temperature is in there from that as well. But here I think is what my plan is going to be. This gets bolted on like that, and I will just go ahead and call that good. I'll put this in right there, and that'll work just fine for that coolant sensor. But now, this guy has got to go on like that, going that way. Now you see, this is already sticking out away from the block as it is. If you were to go ahead and just put this sensor in, it would be way too far. You'd be right into the firewall. I don't really know how that's supposed to work, honestly. But this did come with a block off for that guy right there. So what I'm gonna do is take this guy and drill it out bigger to fit this sensor, because that one, like I said, it does not fit in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and find out what the threads are in this thing, and I don't think that should be a problem. There's plenty of room, and this thing's plenty thick enough. It's not gonna weaken it at all. It's not going too close to either of the edges to cause it to leak either or anything like that. That's just right in the middle, and I already have a hole to go by to guide me. So I'm gonna find out what the threads are on this thing and drill this out, and yeah. But I'm probably gonna have to do that tomorrow, not today, because I'm gonna have to go to the hardware store tomorrow. They're closed now. I'm gonna have to go over there and get a tap.
Good morning, Gearheads. It is the next day because we ended up getting pretty tired last night and just decided to call it a day and go to bed. But we are back and ready to keep wrenching.
Yes, so Christian's not here today, but he did do me a big favor yesterday by coming and mounting the new engine mounts, which are the Super Miata ones from 949 Racing. I was right in the middle of working on the coolant reroute, but I found out that my sandwich plate only has a single port on it, and it's not big enough for me to put the fan switch in. So I've got to drill that out and tap it with bigger threads. But we live in a smaller town, and none of the parts stores or the hardware stores carry that size of threads, or that size tap. So anyway, I went ahead and ordered one from Napa. They'll have one here tomorrow, and we'll be able to get that done before the engine goes in the car. But for now, we have plenty to do still, so let's jump right in. We're gonna go ahead and throw the transmission back on the car, so I'm just lubing up the input shaft before we do that with the grease that ACT sent. And once we put the transmission back on, it'll have enough weight to tip the engine back, and then I can start working on the pulley in the front and some other stuff. And he's gonna start swapping the alternator bracket, because the alternator bracket on this one got bent in the accident that the car was in. So, all right, that should be good. Let me wipe my hand off and let's just stab it back on. Or I can just get it. I don't know.
Can you get it?
Maybe. Here's the. Whoop.
Want me to tilt it backwards?
Sure. That makes it easier. Go ahead and tip it up. Come on. Ah.
Oh.
All right, it's in the splines at least now. I gotta push harder forward, I think.
Shazam.
There we go. All right, one sec. Your stack of bolts here got all messed up. Which one goes where? Is that top left?
Goes here.
When you get that in, I can let go. Okay. Bueno.
All right.
All right, well, good. Now Matt's gonna go ahead and finish mounting the transmission up, and I'm gonna start messing around up here to get that front pulley on. And then we also need to do the cam timing still, so I'm gonna have to get the engine rotated over to where the piston number 1 is at top dead center. So I'll show you guys how to do that in just a minute. So I just realized actually I'm not gonna get started on that pulley just yet, because I'm still waiting for the cam seals up here to get in. I ordered them and they're not here yet. They'll be here later this afternoon. So hopefully we can get that done in this episode. But for now, the alternator bracket here got bent in the accident. You can still see a little piece of the top of the old alternator in it right here. So lucky for me, the 1.6 bracket that's over behind me is exactly the same. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it off and swap it. And it's just got these couple 17mm bolts holding it in on the back side here. Now that that's on, I can go ahead and mount up the new alternator if I want to, and I will, just not yet. And Matt's bolting the starter on and got the bell housing bolts all in place. I can probably swap my oil filter right now if I want to. Carnage.
Alrighty, so the last few minutes we went ahead and got the transmission lined up. We got that torqued down. We got the starter reinstalled, which connects to the bell housing here. And then we also replaced the oil filter on this side of the block.
And I replaced the alternator bracket.
And the alternator bracket. Next, Jesse's gonna go ahead and start working on this oil pressure sender.
Yes,
And,
now on the side of the motor here, there's an oil pressure sender. And this is something to note for anybody doing a 1.6 to 1.8 swap as well, because the 1.8s use a dummy switch, not a, well, most, I think 95 and up. I'll use a dummy switch. So it's not giving you an actual reading on your dash. So the nice thing to do, since you already have your 1.6 engine, when you pull it out, is to take your oil pressure sender off and swap it. And it looks like this one, by the way. This is a 1.6 one. But you take it off and swap it on. And in my case, though, I need to pull more stuff off because you see this line here. That was my turbo oil feed line. So I have a T going into the block, and then one end of the T going to this, and one end of the T going to the sender. So I need to take all of that out right now. Now that that line's off, I need to go ahead and pull out the oil pressure sender. Now, I'm gonna put an adjustable wrench on the end of here. You wanna be careful, don't put too much torque, so if it's too tight, I'll need to probably try and get a wrench in behind it to pull it out, but I'm hoping it's not too tight and I can pull it out this way. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that wasn't too tight at all. Okay, well this thing's all dirty, but it works, so I'll clean it up and put it back on without the T in there. So let me go ahead and get that T out of the block next. There we are. There's that T that was in there, and also it was annoying me because it was causing a leak. So even when the car was running, I was gonna have to pull this back out anyways and find out which one of these little ports was leaking. Anyway though, at least for now, that's good. I'll go ahead and clean this all up, put a sensor back in there, and that'll be good for now until we do the turbo. All right, got the T out. I went ahead and cleaned up this sender a bit, and I'm just gonna go ahead and screw it back in. It sits right above the oil filter, just a little bit to the left. I'm gonna get in snug with my hands. I don't know if there even is a torque spec for this, but I'm not gonna go too tight. I just snugged up with my hands, and I'll go just a little bit more with the wrench here, and that'll be good enough. Ooh, let's see here. Just a little farther. One more maybe. Boop. There we go, that should be good right there. All right, I'm about to do the fuel lines, but I did want to mention, you guys, when you're swapping the engine, before you put it all in the car, make sure you do yourself a favor and get all new rubber lines here. There's a line coming from the back of the head that goes through to the the oil filter. It's like the oil cooler. It's a tiny little oil cooler that the oil goes through before it goes to the filter. Anyways, on the 1.8s, there is 2 lines going to that. Make sure you get new ones so they don't, bust on you later on and you have to try and dig in here and get it, because it's so easy just to grab them and replace them while they're right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace them since I'm here as well, but not yet. I gotta get hoses later, but I did want to mention that to you guys. So, all right. And if you're swapping a 1.6, it has even more rubber hoses because it has some random ones going through the intake manifold. I'm glad the 1.8 doesn't have that. It's just less of a mess.
So Jesse,
What?
how'd you become such an expert at fingering that hole?
Let me tell you.
Jesse's married.
One time, Matt and I. All right. I like to get the fuel rail set down in, at least into somewhat close to where it's going to go, and then I'll stick the injectors in one at a time. So 1 sec. Let me get some lube and prep those injectors, and I'll start installing them. I think I used these actually. Yeah, well, it has all the seals on it. My hope is I'll go ahead and lube them up a little bit before I put it in. Always make sure you do that with the injectors, especially this top O-ring that sits right up here. you want to make sure that you get that thing lubed up before you put them in here, because if you tear it, it'll leak everywhere. Don't forget and don't lose these guys. Everybody always loses them, which is why it looks like somebody RTV'd these things. We'll just peel that RTV off. They were hoping it would make them stick forever, but guess what? They didn't. All right, looks like that fuel rail is on all the injectors. Oopsies, I forgot to bring the bolts over here. Matt, can you hand me the 3 bolts that go in here? That's mounted in solid. Looks like all the injectors are in there nice and straight. And look at that, they spin still, which means that they were lubed up nicely. If you don't lube them up at all, they might stick, and that's what can cause those O-rings to crack. And now Matt's pulling the injector harness out of here, which is just, you gotta reach down and unplug them, and then you just gotta feed all these guys out the back. So I'm gonna run this harness actually temporarily just with these injectors. When I put the Mega Squirt in the car, I'm gonna be doing sequential fuel injection. So I'm going to actually be using a different setup for fuel. Now, it's a little harder on here. You got the EGR stuff in the way. All right, that one snapped in place. All right, and that puts this back plug on the harness right behind the head, which is perfect, where it'll plug back in. And then this guy will go around to this. Anyway, that's how that's gonna go. And then you have to lengthen this wire right here. When you do the 1.8 swap, so this is something to pay attention to. This little guy normally used to plug in right down here on the 1.6, but now that sensor is over here. So you're gonna need to snip this wire and lengthen it and plug it in on the other side. So I'm going to strip and crimp this, and I'm going to heat shrink it. So I'll show you guys how to do that. Now, let's see here. Cut that one. We'll cut this right in the middle. Boop. Don't lose your connector. Of course. Oh, hi there. Hello. All right, now that's stripped. Now here, first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and crimp this on. This is very small, so I'm gonna need to be extra sure when I crimp this that it's actually on all the way and it's not gonna slip. The heat shrink will help hold it. How far in am I? Right there. Okay. Now, I'm gonna run this one in. Now I don't have the heat shrink on there yet because I can slip it from the other side of the wire, but once you're about to close it, make sure you, or if you're about to close the circuit, so to speak, get extra heat shrink wrapped down the wire that you can slide down after it's crimped, just so you don't get yourself stuck. Trust me, I've done that before. So here's the little piece I'm gonna use right here. Slip it over. I didn't cut it. I'm not gonna run it down the whole line. It's not really necessary, at least in this case, even though sometimes I will do that for certain things. But for this should work just fine. I'm just gonna run it down and then just get it a little bit over on each side past the crimp. There we go. All right, now I'm going to use a heat gun to do the rest of these just because it's a little easier, but I just want to show you in case you don't have a heat gun, because a lot of people don't. You can use a lighter to go ahead and get the heat shrink shrunk down. So one sec. Just go back and forth slowly, and if you can, spin around all the way around each side. And you'll see that stuff just shrinks and squeezes right down on the wire and on the connector. Like I said, get all the way around all sides, not just one side. There we go. Check that out. That looks like factory. Beautiful. All right, so I just ran to the parts store and got a gasket. So Matthew's gonna start throwing the exhaust manifold on. I had another 1.8 one sitting around, and I got new cam seals here. So let's see if these are the right size. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I can already tell these are the right size. Perfect. The other ones were too big. All right, now to tap these in evenly and nicely, I'm going to use these old ones here and tap at them with a hammer or something. Let's see, where's the hammer at? All right, so I'm taking one of the old seals here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and tap just the edges of it here just to get it in that way. Just be patient and hit it softly. You don't need to hit it really hard. Okay, there we go. That one's installed. Now I'm just gonna do the same thing on the second one. There we go, cam seals are installed. I'm gonna go ahead and put those cam gears back on. All right, so here's the deal. Before the cam gears go on, I gotta put this timing cover plate back on, and you need this because, let me wipe it off real fast. But you need this because it has these marks on it that say E and I, and that's what you're gonna end up using to help you time the engine with the cam gears and the crank when you get that to top dead center. So let me just finish wiping this off and I'll bolt this guy on. All right. Now that guy goes in right there. I've just got these little 10mm screws to hold it in place. All right, so now that I got the timing cover on, I know it might be a little hard to see on the camera, but if you look in the middle, there is a it's kind of molded into this cover here, and this little guy coming up has an E, and that one has an I. Now, if you look at the end of the camshaft, you can see right here is that little stub sticking right out. What you're gonna line that up with on the intake side where the E is here, you can see on the cam gear there's a there's an I, and match that up because this can only go on, it can go on one of these, you know, 3 ways. All right, and then just take a 14mm and tighten these guys back up. All right, cool.
All right, you guys, so it is the second day. Unfortunately, we didn't have too much time today to work on the blocks, but I feel like we did get a lot done, and we still have a lot to do.
Yeah, so this was originally, I think, gonna be a 3-part series. I think it's probably gonna turn into a 4-part series because personally, at least, I like being thorough. I don't want to leave any, you know, important information out or things that I think you guys could use or would like to see. So this is definitely like part 2 of a probably now part 4 series.
Part 4. We're halfway done.
Halfway done, but yeah, we got to get out of here. We can't stay later tonight like we did yesterday. And we weren't able to get started early either. We had to work our schedules together. So anyways, we will pick back up with this in a few days and continue this. And as far as this engine goes, we're really almost done, almost ready to start putting it back in the car. Matt's just got to finish doing the exhaust here. So we're pulling some studs out of that one for this one because I didn't have any extras sitting around, sadly, that'll fit. And then we got to do the pulley on the front of here, find the timing of the engine, install the timing belt. So, and that'll be good for me to cover anyways, show you guys how to do a timing belt. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this episode at least. We'll pick back up soon and we will hopefully have this thing done in, I don't know, hopefully done this week for me.
So like Jesse said, you know, we're gonna finish this up soon. He wants to be thorough. We're gonna be thorough for you guys. So it is gonna take us a little longer, but we'll get it done. We're gonna get it done right. So anyways, keep watching and don't forget,
Keep wrenching.